October 14, 1944. The Hürtgen Forest, along the German-Belgian border. Sergeant Franz Böhmer crouches in a muddy foxhole, listening to artillery shells tear through autumn branches overhead. Oak and beech trees that stood for centuries now splinter like matchsticks. The forest floor is carpeted with broken limbs and shell fragments. Everything smells of cordite and wet earth. He is 28 years old. A schoolteacher from Heidelberg before the war. 3 years of fighting across Poland, Russia, France. Now he defends German soil against American forces pushing toward the Rhine. His hands shake when he lights cigarettes. He notices this but does not speak of it. The foxhole is barely deep enough to protect him. Water seeps through the bottom, mixing with mud that never dries. He shares this hole with Corporal Klaus Richter, a farm boy from Bavaria who still believes Germany will win. Franz no longer believes anything except that he will probably die in this forest. At 0730, the American artillery stops. This is the pattern. 30 minutes of bombardment, then silence, then infantry attack. Franz checks his carabiner 98K rifle. 8 rounds in the magazine. He has 20 more rounds in pouches on his belt. His company began with 180 men. Now they number 47. The attack begins at 0745. American soldiers move through the trees in squad formations, using cover, advancing methodically. Franz fires his rifle. Ejects the spent casing. Chambers another round. Fires again. The Americans return fire. Bullets snap past his head. By 0900, the attack stalls. The Americans withdraw to regroup. Franz and Klaus remain in their foxhole. Neither speaks. There is nothing to say that has not already been said. At 10:30, Franz climbs out of the foxhole to stretch his legs during the lull. He walks 30 meters to the left where his company's defensive line continues. The forest here is devastated. Craters from artillery. Shattered trees. Abandoned equipment from both sides. He sees something half buried in the mud. A flash of red fabric. He approaches and bends down. It is a small stuffed bear, no larger than his hand. Red corduroy material, button eyes, crude stitching. The kind of toy a mother might make from scraps. The bear is soaked with rainwater and mud. One arm is torn, stuffing visible. Franz picks it up. He does not know why. Perhaps because it is the first thing he has seen in weeks that is not meant to kill or be killed. He looks at the bear closely. Someone loved this. Some child held this while falling asleep, carried it like treasure. He imagines a small hand clutching it. He imagines that child somewhere now, crying for something lost. Franz puts the bear in his coat pocket. He returns to his foxhole. Klaus sees the bear when Franz takes it out to examine it again. "What are you doing with that?" Klaus asks. Franz does not answer. He is not sure himself. The war continues around them. More artillery. More attacks. More death. But Franz keeps the bear in his pocket. At night, when he cannot sleep, he takes it out and holds it. The fabric is still damp. It smells of earth and gunpowder. 3 days pass. The fighting intensifies. American forces push harder into the forest. Franz's company retreats twice, establishes new defensive positions, retreats again. Men die. Positions are overrun and retaken. The forest becomes a graveyard where the living dig holes and wait to join the dead. On October 17, Franz's position overlooks a narrow valley. Across this valley, 200 meters away, American forces hold the opposite ridge. Between them lies no man's land. A killing ground swept by machine guns and mortars. Nothing moves there in daylight without dying. Franz watches through field glasses. He can see American soldiers in their positions. They look cold and tired, just like his own men. They smoke cigarettes during lulls. They duck when shells come in. They are not so different. That night, Franz takes out the bear again. He studies it in the dim light of his shelter. The stitching is careful, deliberate. Whoever made this put love into every stitch. He thinks about the child who lost it. He thinks about his own nephew, whom he has not seen in 2 years. He makes a decision that he cannot explain, even to himself. The next morning, at dawn, when the light is gray and both sides are waking to another day of killing, Franz ties a white handkerchief to a stick. He stands up in his position, holding the stick high. German and American soldiers on both sides stare in shock. He walks forward into no man's land. Every step is a gamble. Every meter might be his last. American rifles track him. German officers shout at him to get back. He ignores them all. He reaches the center of the valley. He places the bear on a broken tree stump. Then he walks backward to his own lines, still holding the white flag. No one shoots. The bear sits alone on the stump between two armies. Franz does not sleep that night. He lies in his shelter thinking about what he has done. It seems insane in retrospect. He risked execution for displaying a white flag without authorization. He risked being shot by Americans who might think it a trick. He risked mockery from his own men. Klaus says nothing about it. The other soldiers whisper but do not confront him. Perhaps they understand something he does not yet understand himself. The next morning, October 19th, Franz watches through field glasses as dawn breaks. The bear is gone from the stump. In its place sits a small wooden box. Franz stares at this box for a long time. His hands are steady on the field glasses. Something has changed. The war has paused, just for a moment, to make space for something else. At 0900, during the usual morning lull, Franz again ties the white handkerchief to his stick. He walks out into no man's land. This time he does not hesitate. He walks directly to the stump, picks up the box, and returns. Inside the box he finds three things. A chocolate bar, American brand. A pack of cigarettes, Lucky Strikes. And the bear, cleaned and repaired. Someone has sewn the torn arm with neat stitches. The mud has been washed away. The bear looks almost new. There is also a note, written in careful German, Für das Kind. For the child. Franz sits in his foxhole holding the bear and crying. Klaus pretends not to notice. The chocolate and cigarettes Franz distributes among his squad. The bear he keeps. That evening, Franz writes a letter. Not to send, there is no mail service this close to the front, but to clarify his own thoughts. He writes about the bear, about the American who cleaned and repaired it, about what it means that even here, in the Hürtgen Forest where men die by the hundreds, someone took time to sew a toy's arm. He writes, "We are told the Americans are beasts. But beasts do not repair children's toys. We are told we fight for civilization. But what civilization remains when we make forests into graveyards? Perhaps the only civilization left is in small gestures. Perhaps the only humanity left is in what we do when no one orders us to do it." He burns the letter. Such thoughts are dangerous. The next day brings more fighting. An American probe at dawn. Artillery exchanges throughout the morning. 2 men from Franz's company are killed. 5 wounded. The Americans lose men too. Franz sees medics dragging bodies back through the trees. But at 1400, during the afternoon lull, Franz walks out again with the bear. He places it back on the stump. This time he also leaves something, a tin of German field rations, and a note in broken English, for soldier who fix. Thank you. He returns to his lines. Waits. The next morning, the bear is gone again. In its place, another box. Inside, the bear, still clean, still repaired. Also coffee, real American coffee, not the ersatz German substitute. And a note, keep it safe. Some kid is waiting. Franz does not cry this time. He smiles. It is the first time he has smiled in months. This exchange continues. Every 2 or 3 days, when fighting permits, Franz walks out with the bear. Each time, the American, whoever he is, returns it with something small. A can of peaches. A pair of dry socks. Once, a small bottle of whiskey. Franz reciprocates. German chocolate when he can get it. Cigarettes. Once, a book of poetry by Goethe, water-damaged but readable, which he finds in an abandoned farmhouse. They never see each other. The exchanges happen at dawn or dusk, always during lulls, always with the white flag. Both sides grow accustomed to it. Soldiers on both sides watch these strange trips across no man's land. At first they mutter about it. Then they grow silent. Then they wait for it, the way men might wait for a letter from home. On October 27th, Franz places the bear on the stump along with a note, "Who are you?" The next morning, the response, Private James Novak, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You. Franz writes back, Sergeant Franz Böhmer, Heidelberg. Teacher. The response, Mechanic. 3 kids. You. 1 nephew. Miss him. War is shit. Yes. These messages are not poetry. They are not philosophy. They are simply 2 men acknowledging each other's existence across a space designed to erase existence. The fighting continues. Men still die. Shells still fall. But something has shifted. The war is the same. The world is the same. But Franz has changed. He cannot articulate how, but he feels it. He no longer shakes when lighting cigarettes. On November 2nd, new American forces rotate into the line across the valley. Fresh troops, well supplied, aggressive. They mount an attack at dawn without the usual artillery preparation. The attack penetrates Franz's position. Close combat in the trees. Grenades. Rifle fire. Men grappling with bayonets and entrenching tools. Franz shoots an American soldier at 3 meters distance. The man's face registers surprise before he falls. Franz vomits afterward. He has killed many men in 3 years of war. But this is the first time he has seen their face so clearly. The attack is repulsed by 1100. American forces withdraw, leaving 8 dead in front of Franz's position. German casualties are lighter, 3 dead, 5 wounded. Franz's company holds. That afternoon, Franz does not walk out to the stump. The fighting has been too recent, too intense. The white flag would be suicide. But he takes out the bear and looks at it. He notices things he had not seen before. The button eyes are mismatched, one blue, one brown. The stitching on the repaired arm is different from the original stitching, neater, more careful. Someone spent time on this. Someone cared. The next morning, November 3rd, Franz wakes to find Lieutenant Steiner standing over his foxhole. Steiner is the company commander, a veteran of Stalingrad, a hard man who has survived by being harder. "I am told you have been conducting unauthorized contact with the enemy," Steiner says. Franz does not deny it. "Yes, Herr Lieutenant." "Explain." Franz shows him the bear. Tells him about the exchanges. The gifts. The messages. Steiner listens without expression. When Franz finishes, Steiner is silent for a long moment. Then he says, "This is irregular." "Yes, Herr Lieutenant." "It violates protocol." "Yes, Herr Lieutenant." Steiner picks up the bear. Examines it. Turns it over in his scarred hands. "I had a daughter," he says quietly. "She would have liked this. She died in Berlin during an air raid. She was 4. He hands the bear back to Franz. "Continue your exchanges, Sergeant. But be careful. Not all officers would be understanding." Steiner walks away. Franz sits stunned. Even Steiner, hard as iron, sharpened by Stalingrad, carries something soft inside. Even Steiner remembers a daughter and a toy. That evening, Franz walks out during the evening lull. The white flag catches the last light of day. He places the bear on the stump and waits. Across the valley, he sees movement. A figure stands up in the American lines. A soldier, tall, wearing a helmet that is too large for his head. Private James Novak. They stand there, 200 meters apart, looking at each other across the valley. Neither raises a weapon. Neither moves closer. They simply acknowledge each other's existence in physical form, not just through notes and gifts. Franz raises his hand in greeting. Novak returns the gesture. Then both men return to their lines. Franz does not know what this means. But it means something. The bear remains on the stump overnight. In the morning, it is back with a note, "Saw you yesterday. Glad you're still alive." Franz writes back, "Same. November continues. The exchanges continue. The bear travels back and forth across no man's land like a messenger between two worlds. Each time, it comes back cleaner, more carefully maintained. Each time, it carries small gifts, food, tobacco, once a pair of gloves. Other soldiers begin to notice. Not just Franz's company, but the entire battalion sector. Word spreads. The bear man, they call him. Some mock him. Most do not. The war has taught them that small dignities matter more than grand gestures. On November 9, a young soldier named Dieter arrives as a replacement. 18 years old, fresh from training, eager to prove himself. He has the bright eyes of someone who has not yet seen what war does. Dieter watches Franz walk out with the bear during the evening exchange. He asks Klaus, "What is that about?" Klaus explains. Dieter's eyes narrow. "That's fraternization. That's treason. That's survival," Klaus says. "Mind your own business." But Dieter does not mind his business. The next day, when Franz prepares for another exchange, Dieter says loudly, "The sergeant is a traitor. He aids the enemy." Several soldiers turn to look. Franz freezes. This is dangerous. Accusations of treason can lead to field execution. One word to the wrong officer, and Franz will face a firing squad. Klaus steps forward. The sergeant does what he thinks is right. You would do well to respect that. I respect only my duty to Germany, Dieter says. An older soldier named Wilhelm, who has been in the company since Poland, says quietly, Germany would benefit from more men like the sergeant and fewer like you, boy. Dieter looks around, sees no support, and falls silent. But his eyes remain hostile. Franz walks out with the bear anyway. His hands do not shake. November 15, 1944. The Americans launch a major offensive along the entire Hürtgen sector. Artillery bombardment begins at 0400, heavier than anything Franz has experienced since Russia. The forest explodes. Trees burst into splinters. Earth erupts in fountains. Men die in their foxholes, buried alive or torn apart. The bombardment lasts 90 minutes. When it ends, American infantry advances in battalion strength. Franz's company cannot hold. They fight from tree to tree, falling back through the forest. Men are hit and left behind. Wounded cry for help that does not come. By 0800, Franz's company has retreated half a kilometer. Lieutenant Steiner is wounded, evacuated. Command falls to Lieutenant Müller, a Nazi party member who believes in nothing except orders and ideology. Müller sees Franz during the retreat. Sees the bear visible in Franz's coat pocket. What is that? He demands. Franz cannot hide it. A child's toy, her lieutenant. Why do you have it? Franz does not answer quickly enough. Müller snatches the bear from his pocket. Examines it. His face darkens. This is American workmanship. The stitching. The repairs. Where did you get this? Klaus tries to intervene. Her lieutenant, it is nothing. Silence. Müller turns back to Franz. You have been conducting unauthorized contact with the enemy. This is treason. Franz says nothing. What can he say? It is true. Müller orders Franz arrested. 2 soldiers take Franz's rifle and bayonet. They bind his hands with wire. Müller says, you will be tried by military tribunal when we reach regimental headquarters. The penalty for treason is death. They march Franz to the rear. Klaus watches, helpless. The bear remains with Müller. At regimental headquarters, 6 kilometers behind the front, Franz sits in a dugout under guard. He has no food. No water. His hands are still bound. The wire cuts into his wrists. He thinks about Private James Novak across the valley. He wonders if Novak knows what happened. He wonders if Novak will place the bear on the stump tomorrow and find nothing. That night, Klaus appears at the dugout. He has brought bread and water. The guards allow it, Klaus is respected, and guards are not paid to be cruel when no officers watch. The company is asking about you, Klaus says. They are not happy with Müller. It doesn't matter, Franz says. He is within his rights. Rights. Klaus spits. What rights matter in this forest? We kill and die for a regime that sent us here. You offered a moment of humanity, and they call it treason. Perhaps they are right. If showing kindness is treason, Klaus says, then treason is the only honorable thing left. He leaves before Franz can respond. Franz sits in the darkness thinking about this. About honor and duty and what they mean when orders require cruelty. About whether a man can be a traitor to an evil cause and still be called a traitor. The next morning, November 16th, Müller comes to the dugout. The tribunal will convene this afternoon, he says. Prepare yourself. But the tribunal never convenes. At 1100, American artillery again pounds the German positions. The offensive continues. American forces break through on the right flank. Chaos spreads through the regiment. Orders come to retreat immediately. In the confusion, Franz's guards disappear. Someone cuts his bonds, he does not see who. He is swept up in the retreat, moving with the mass of soldiers falling back through the forest. Müller is nowhere to be seen. By evening, Franz finds himself with the remnants of his company, 10 kilometers from their original position. 23 men remain from the original 47. Klaus is among them. Dieter is not, killed in the morning attack. Lieutenant Müller appears the next morning. He looks at Franz and says nothing. Perhaps he has forgotten about the tribunal in the chaos. Perhaps he no longer cares. Perhaps he realizes that prosecution of one sergeant hardly matters when the entire army is retreating. Franz does not have the bear. He does not know where it is. Müller may still have it, or it may be lost in the retreat, or buried in the mud of some abandoned position. It is gone. Franz feels its absence like a wound. For 3 days, the company retreats. They dig new positions, hold for hours, retreat again. American forces pursue. The Hürtgen Forest becomes a slaughterhouse. Entire companies cease to exist. Battalions are reduced to squads. The forest swallows men and offers nothing in return. On November 19th, Franz's company establishes a defensive line on the eastern edge of the forest. Here they are ordered to hold. Reinforcements arrive, new soldiers, old men and boys, scraped together from rear echelon units. The company is brought back to 35 men. Franz digs a new foxhole. He has no photographs, no letters, no possessions except his rifle and the clothes on his back. But most of all, he misses the bear. Not for himself, but for what it represented. A connection. A moment of shared humanity. A reminder that the war had not consumed everything. That evening, Klaus approaches him. I have something for you, he says. He hands Franz a small bundle wrapped in cloth. Franz unwraps it. Inside is the bear. How? Franz asks. I found it in Müller's gear during the retreat. He must have dropped it when we were running. I took it. Franz holds the bear. It is muddy again, damaged from the retreat. One of the button eyes is missing. But it is still the bear. Thank you, Franz says. Klaus nods and walks away. Franz sits in his foxhole holding the bear as darkness falls. Across the forest, artillery rumbles. Men shout orders. The war continues. But Franz has the bear back. The next morning, Franz looks across the valley toward the American lines. They are too far away now. The retreat has put kilometers between the positions. There will be no more exchanges. No more messages. Private James Novak, wherever he is beyond reach. But Franz keeps the bear. December arrives. The Hürtgen Forest is a frozen hell. Snow covers the shattered trees. Men freeze in their foxholes. Frostbite is as dangerous as bullets. The offensive has stalled. Both sides settle into static warfare, holding positions, launching small raids, losing men to attrition. Franz's company now numbers 18 men. Half are replacements. Only 6 remain from the original company that entered the forest in October. Franz is the ranking sergeant. Klaus is still with him. Lieutenant Müller was killed in a small arms engagement on November 28. No one mourned him. The new company commander is Captain Ernst Weber, an older officer pulled from occupation duty in France. Weber is tired and sensible and has no interest in ideology. He tells his men, "Stay alive. That is your duty." Franz keeps the bear in his coat pocket. He takes it out at night when he cannot sleep. The missing button eye gives it a lopsided appearance. The repaired arm is starting to fray again. But it is still intact. Other soldiers know about the bear. They do not mock it anymore. In a forest where thousands have died, where survival is measured in hours, the bear has become something else. A talisman. A symbol. Men touch it for luck before patrols. They ask to hold it when they receive bad news from home. Franz allows this. The bear is not his alone. It belongs to all of them now. On December 10th, a patrol from Franz's company captures 2 American soldiers. They are scouts who got separated from their unit in the snow. Both are young, both are terrified. They expect to be shot. Captain Weber interrogates them briefly, then orders them held for transport to a rear area prison camp. That night, Franz is assigned to guard the prisoners. They sit in a dugout, hands bound, shivering. One is bleeding from a cut on his forehead. The other coughs constantly, his lungs damaged by gas or cold. Franz gives them water. He shares his bread ration. The Americans stare at him, confused. This is not how enemies are supposed to act. Franz takes out the bear and shows it to them. "Do you know Private James Novak?" he asks in broken English. The Americans shake their heads. Franz did not expect them to know. The American army is vast. But he asks anyway. He tells them the story of the bear. About the exchanges. About the messages. About the small gifts and the moment of understanding across no man's land. The Americans listen. The coughing soldier's eyes grow wet. "We're not monsters," the soldier says quietly. "Neither are you." "No," Franz agrees. "We are not." In the morning, the prisoners are marched to the rear. Franz never sees them again. But he thinks about them. About how easy it was to share bread and water with them. About how they were just men, cold and scared, no different from himself. The forest claims more men. A raid on December 13th costs 3 killed. An American mortar attack on December 15th kills 2 more and wounds 4. The company shrinks. New replacements arrive, barely trained, and die within days. The forest does not distinguish between veteran and recruit. It consumes all equally. On December 16th, something unexpected happens. German forces launch a massive offensive in the Ardennes, to the south. The Bulge, it will be called later. It is Germany's last great gamble, an attempt to split Allied armies and reach Antwerp. The offensive requires every available unit. Franz's company receives orders on December 17th to disengage and move south to support the attack. They abandon their positions in the forest and march through snow toward the Ardennes. Franz looks back at the Hürtgen Forest as they leave. He does not know how many men died there. Thousands certainly. Tens of thousands perhaps. For nothing. The forest was never strategically important. It was just a place where men fought and died because orders said to fight and die there. He touches the bear in his pocket. At least something good came from that forest. At least one connection was made. At least 2 men, across a valley designed for killing, acknowledged each other's humanity. The march south takes 3 days. The company is incorporated into a battle group copying together remnants from multiple shattered units. Franz's 18 men become part of a formation numbering 200, all that remains of what was once a full regiment. They reach the Ardennes on December 20th and are immediately thrown into combat. The offensive is already faltering. American resistance is stronger than expected. Supply lines are breaking down. The weather has turned, grounding German aircraft and bogging down tanks in mud. Franz fights in villages and forests different from the Hürtgen but just as deadly. He does not think about victory anymore. He thinks only about survival. 1 more hour. 1 more day. 1 more week. On December 23rd, the weather clears. American aircraft appear in force. Fighter bombers strafe German columns. Bombers pound assembly areas. The offensive collapses under air attack and artillery. German forces begin withdrawing on December 24th. Christmas Eve, 1944. Franz sits in a basement in a Belgian village whose name he does not know. 15 men remain from his company. Klaus is still alive. So is Wilhelm. The others are all new faces, boys who will probably be dead by New Year. Someone has found candles. They light them and sit in silence. No one speaks of Christmas or peace or anything hopeful. They are beyond that now. They simply sit together in the candlelight, grateful to be warm and alive for one more night. Franz takes out the bear. He sets it on an upturned crate where everyone can see it. The candlelight flickers across its worn fabric and mismatched eyes. It looks shabby and worn, a thing that has survived too much. "Tell us about the bear," a young soldier asks. "His name is Peter. He is 17. Franz tells the story again. About finding it in the mud. About the exchanges with Private Novak. About the notes and gifts. About the moment when two enemies stood and acknowledged each other across a valley. The men listen quietly. When Franz finishes, Wilhelm says, "That American, Novak. He was a good man." "Yes," Franz says. "He was. Do you think he's still alive?" Franz does not know. The Hürtgen Forest consumed so many. American casualties were as heavy as German. Novak could be dead, could be wounded, could be fighting elsewhere. There is no way to know. "I hope so," Franz says. That night, Franz writes in the back of his paybook, the only paper he has, December 24, 1944. "Somewhere in Belgium. We are losing. I know this now. Perhaps I have known for months. But tonight, sitting with my men, watching candlelight on a child's toy, I do not care about winning or losing. I care only that we saw each other, that American and I, across the valley. We saw each other as men, not enemies. That is worth more than all the victories of all the armies in history. That is the only thing worth keeping when this is over." He does not know if he will survive to the end. Most soldiers do not. But he has written this down, and writing it makes it real, makes it something that existed outside his own memory. The candles burn down. The men sleep. Franz holds the bear and thinks about Private James Novak in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He thinks about the 3 children Novak mentioned. He hopes they have their father home for Christmas. He hopes Novak is telling them stories, not about war, but about toy bears and messages across valleys. He hopes for this because hoping for anything else is too much to bear. January 1945. The German army retreats across the Ardennes, back toward the German border. The offensive has failed completely. Casualties are catastrophic. Equipment is lost or abandoned. The Wehrmacht is breaking. Franz's battle group disintegrates. Men desert in ones and twos, walking east toward home or west toward American lines with hands raised. Officers are shot by their own soldiers when they try to restore order. The army is no longer an army. It is a mob of exhausted men who want only to stop fighting. On January 8, Franz's group, now just 9 men, reaches the German border near Monschau. They are ordered to establish defensive positions. They dig in half-heartedly, knowing these positions will not hold. That night, Klaus approaches Franz. "I'm leaving," he says. "Deserting?" "Yes." Franz says nothing. What can he say? The war is lost. Everyone knows it. Fighting now serves no purpose except to add more names to the casualty lists. "Come with me," Klaus says. "We'll go south, away from the front. Find somewhere to hide until it's over." Franz considers this. It is tempting. More than tempting. The war has taken everything from him, years of his life, his health, his hope. What does he owe to Germany now? What does he owe to a regime that started this war and is now sacrificing its last men to delay the inevitable? He takes out the bear. Looks at it in the moonlight. "I can't," he says. "Why not?" "Because of this." Franz holds up the bear. "Because if I desert, I'm saying that the exchange meant nothing. That the moment of humanity was a lie. I have to see it through. I have to survive so I can return this to the child who lost it." Klaus stares at him. "You're insane. You don't even know where the child is. It's probably dead, like everything else." Probably, Franz agrees. But I have to try. Klaus shakes his head sadly. Then I'll pray for you, Franz. You're a better man than this war deserves. He walks away into the darkness. Franz never sees him again. The next morning, American forces attack at dawn. Artillery and tanks. The defensive position collapses in 30 minutes. Franz runs through the forest with the 5 remaining men from his group. They are surrounded. Soldiers throw down their rifles and raise their hands. Franz raises his hands too. It is over. American soldiers search him. They take his rifle, his bayonet, his remaining ammunition. One soldier finds the bear in his coat pocket. He pulls it out, stares at it. What the hell is this? He asks. Franz says in English, for child. I must return. The soldier looks at him like he is mad. But he gives the bear back. Whatever, buddy. Keep your damn toy. Franz and the other prisoners are marched west into Belgium. They walk for 3 days, sleeping in barns and fields, eating American rations. The prisoners are not mistreated. Guards are bored and tired, interested only in getting this detail over with. On January 12, they reach a large POW compound near Liège. Thousands of German prisoners are here, living in tents and temporary barracks. Barbed wire surrounds the compound. American MPs patrol the perimeter. But inside, prisoners are left largely alone to organize themselves. Franz finds a place in one of the barracks. He shares space with 40 other men. Most are from units that fell apart in the Ardennes. They speak of the defeat with exhaustion, not anger. No one believes Germany can still win. They talk only of home, of when they will be released, of what they will do after. Franz keeps the bear hidden. He does not show it to anyone. It is too precious to risk. Days pass. Weeks. The war continues without them. News filters into the camp. American and Soviet forces are advancing deep into Germany. Cities are falling. The Third Reich is collapsing. On February 15, an American officer visits the barracks. He is a captain, accompanied by a translator. He asks if anyone speaks English. Franz raises his hand. The captain interviews him. Routine questions about his unit, his service, his role in the war. Franz answers honestly. He has nothing to hide. He was a soldier who followed orders, fought battles, and survived. At the end of the interview, the captain asks, "Why do you have a child's toy?" Franz tells him about the bear. About finding it in the Hürtgen Forest. About the exchanges with Private Novak. About the messages and the gifts. About the moment of recognition across the valley. The captain listens without interrupting. When Franz finishes, the captain is quiet for a long time. Then he says, "That's remarkable. Is Private Novak alive?" Franz asks. "I don't know," the captain says. "But I'll try to find out." 3 weeks pass. Franz does not expect to hear anything. The captain probably forgot. It does not matter. But on March 8, the captain returns. He brings another soldier with him. The soldier is tall, wearing a helmet that is too large for his head. Private James Novak. Franz stands up slowly. He cannot speak. Novak stares at him across the barracks, and his eyes are wet. The captain says, "I'll give you 10 minutes." He and the translator leave. Franz and Novak stand facing each other. The other prisoners watch in silence. "Hello," Franz says. "Hello," Novak says. Franz takes out the bear. Holds it up. Novak sees it and his face crumbles. He walks forward and takes the bear in his hands. He holds it like something sacred. "You kept it," Novak says. "Yes. Through everything. The retreat. The capture. You kept it." "Yes." Novak holds the bear against his chest. "My daughter's," he says. "She was 4. She died during an air raid on London while visiting my wife's family. December 1943. The toy was all I had left of her. I dropped it during a patrol in October. Never thought I'd see it again." Franz understands now. The care in the stitching. The time taken to clean and repair it. Novak was not fixing a random toy. He was tending to his daughter's memory. I am sorry, Franz says. You kept it safe, Novak says. When you could have thrown it away. When you were arrested. When you were retreating. You kept it safe for her. I did not know it was hers. It doesn't matter. You knew it was someone's. That's enough. They stand in silence. What else is there to say? The war destroyed Novak's daughter and thousands, millions, of other children. The war destroyed everything. But here, in this moment, two men who tried to kill each other are standing together, united by a child's toy and the recognition that some things matter more than war. Novak carefully wraps the bear in a cloth from his pack. Thank you, he says. Thank you for fixing it, Franz says. The captain returns. Novak and Franz shake hands. Then Novak leaves with the captain. Franz watches him go. The other prisoners are silent. That evening, Wilhelm asks Franz, what did he say? Franz tells them about Novak's daughter. About the air raid. About what the bear meant. He kept exchanging it even after his daughter died. Wilhelm asks. Yes. Why? Because, Franz says slowly, if he stopped, then her death meant nothing. If he stopped, the war won. By continuing, by fixing the bear and returning it, he was saying that love does not die with death. That care persists even through loss. That humanity exists even in hell. Wilhelm nods slowly. Then we were right to help you keep it. Yes, Franz says. We were right. The war ends on May 8, 1945. Germany surrenders unconditionally. The prisoners in the camp cheer, not because Germany won, but because the killing is finally over. Franz remains in the POW camp until September. The process of screening prisoners is slow. Those with connections to SS or Nazi party organizations are held longer. Those with clean records are gradually released. Franz's record is clean. He was a soldier, nothing more. On September 14, 1945, he is released. The Americans give him civilian clothes, a rail pass, and a small amount of money. They send him east toward Germany. He travels through the ruins. Cities are shattered. Cologne is rubble. Frankfurt is devastated. Heidelberg, his home, has been mostly spared, but it is occupied and broken. He finds his apartment building still standing. His rooms have been looted, but they are there. He has no job. The schools are closed or under reconstruction. He has no family nearby, his parents died before the war, his brother was killed in Russia. He has nothing except his clothes and his memories. And the knowledge that somewhere, Private James Novak has his daughter's bear. Franz begins teaching again in 1946 when the schools reopen. He teaches history and literature to German children who grew up under the Third Reich and must now learn a different truth about their world. He teaches them carefully, gently, about what happened and why it must never happen again. He does not speak of the bear to his students. It is too personal. Too sacred. But in 1952, 7 years after the war ended, Franz receives a letter. It is forwarded through multiple addresses before reaching him. The handwriting is in English. The return address is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Franz opens it with shaking hands. Dear Franz. I hope this letter finds you. I have been searching for your address for years. The army helped me finally locate you. I wanted you to know that I have the bear. It sits on my mantle in my home. My wife and I look at it every day. We have a new daughter now, born in 1947. Her name is Marie. We tell her about her sister, and we tell her about the soldier who kept her sister's bear safe through a war. Marie holds the bear sometimes. She does not understand yet what it represents. But she will. When she is older, we will tell her the full story. About you and me. About the exchanges in the Hürtgen Forest. About how two enemies found humanity in the midst of horror. I have thought often about what we did. About those small gestures across the valley. I believe they mattered more than all the battles we fought. I believe that in choosing to see each other as men instead of enemies, we did something the war could not destroy. You asked once in a note, why? Why did I repair the bear? Why did I continue the exchanges? The answer is simple. Because if I did not, then the war won. If I let cruelty and death consume everything, then my daughter died for nothing. By repairing her bear, by returning it to you, by sharing gifts and messages, I was saying, humanity survives. Love survives. Even in hell, we are still men. Thank you for keeping the bear safe. Thank you for honoring my daughter's memory, though you never knew her. Thank you for being the man who walked into no man's land with a white flag when you could have stayed hidden. You are a good man, Franz. I hope you have found peace. Your friend, James Novak. Franz reads the letter 3 times. Then he sits at his desk and writes a response. Dear James, I received your letter today. I cannot express what it means to me to know that you are alive and well, and that your daughter's bear is safe. I often think about the Hürtgen Forest. About the valley between our lines. About the moment we stood and acknowledged each other. I believe, as you do, that it mattered. In a war that destroyed millions, we found a moment of grace. That is worth remembering. I teach now, here in Heidelberg. I teach children about history and literature. I try to teach them that people are not enemies by nature. That we become enemies only when we forget to see each other as human. Sometimes I tell them about a soldier I knew during the war. An American. I do not name you, but I tell them about the exchanges. About the messages. About 2 men who chose kindness when cruelty was easier. The students listen. They are children of the war, born in ruins, growing up in a world trying to rebuild itself. They need these stories. They need to know that even in the darkest times, humanity persists. Thank you for your letter. Thank you for remembering me. Thank you for keeping the bear safe, not just during the war, but after. It is a memorial now. A monument to your daughter and to all the children lost in the war. I hope to meet you someday, in a world at peace. Until then, know that you are remembered by a German teacher who once walked across no man's land to return a child's toy. Your friend, Franz. They exchange letters for years. Not often, once or twice a year, but consistently. They write about their lives, their families, their hopes. They write about memory and what the war took from them and what it could not take. Franz never marries. He dedicates his life to teaching. He becomes known in Heidelberg as an excellent teacher, patient and thoughtful. He dies in 1983 at the age of 67, of a heart attack while preparing a lesson on World War I poetry. Among his possessions, his colleagues find a box of letters from America, tied with string, carefully preserved. In 2004, James Novak's daughter Marie publishes a book about her father and the bear. She includes the letters between her father and Franz Böhmer. She includes photographs of the bear, worn and fragile, still sitting on her parents' mantle. The book is titled The Bear Between the Lines. It becomes a modest success, read mostly by history enthusiasts and those interested in small stories from the war. But something unexpected happens. Veterans begin writing to Marie. Men who served in the Hürtgen Forest. Men who remember the exchanges, who watched Franz Böhmer walk out with a white flag, who heard the stories and passed them along. A British veteran writes, "We heard about it in our sector, about the German and the American who traded gifts. It gave us hope that we were not all monsters." A French resistance fighter writes, "Stories like this traveled through the underground. They reminded us that Germans were not all Nazis, that humanity could survive occupation and war." An American soldier from the 28th Infantry Division writes, "I was there in the Hürtgen. I saw your father make one of those exchanges. I thought he was crazy. But later, when I was wounded and a German medic treated me instead of shooting me, I remembered the bear. I remembered that kindness was possible." Marie compiles these letters. She gives talks at schools and museums. She tells the story of her father and Franz Böhmer. She explains that the war was not simply a contest between good and evil, but a human tragedy in which people on all sides struggled to maintain their humanity. The bear itself is donated to the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C. It is displayed in a small exhibit about resistance and humanity during the war. The placard reads, "This toy bear belonged to Margaret Novak, age 4, who died in an air raid on London in December 1943. Her father, Private James Novak, dropped it during a patrol in the Hürtgen Forest in October 1944. It was found by German Sergeant Franz Böhmer, who returned it repeatedly across enemy lines. Through this simple act, two soldiers affirmed their shared humanity in the midst of war. The bear became a symbol of the persistence of compassion even in the darkest times. Visitors to the museum stop and read the placard. They look at the worn toy with its mismatched button eyes and frayed stitching. Many cry. Because they understand. The bear is not just a child's toy. It is a memorial to every small act of kindness that resisted the war's cruelty. It is a testament to the men and women who refused to let violence consume everything. It is proof that even in the Hürtgen Forest, where thousands died in senseless battles, humanity found a way to survive. In 2015, a German schoolteacher brings her students to see the exhibit. She tells them about Franz Böhmer, who taught at her school in Heidelberg. She tells them about the exchanges across the valley. She tells them that Böhmer once said in class, "When you see your enemy as a man, you have already defeated the war." The students ask questions. Why did he risk his life for a toy? Why did the American keep returning it? Why did they continue when it would have been easier to stop? The teacher says, because they understood something we must never forget. That war is not natural. That violence is not inevitable. That we choose, every day, whether to be kind or cruel. And that choosing kindness, even in small ways, even when it costs us, is how we remain human. One student asks, did it change anything? Did the exchanges end the war? The teacher smiles sadly. No. The war continued. Men still died. The forest still consumed thousands. But Böhmer and Novak showed that the war did not have to consume everything. They created a space, however small, where humanity persisted. And that space grew. Other soldiers saw what they did and were changed by it. The changes were quiet, invisible, impossible to measure. But they were real. The students stand in front of the exhibit, looking at the bear. They try to imagine the Hürtgen Forest, the valley between the lines, the moment when a German sergeant walked out with a white flag to return a child's toy to an enemy who became a friend. It seems impossible. In a war that killed 60 million people, that destroyed cities and nations, that traumatized generations, how could one toy bear matter? But it mattered to Franz Böhmer and James Novak. It mattered to the men who watched them and remembered. It matters now, 70 years later, to children standing in a museum trying to understand how their grandparents survived something so terrible. The bear sits in its case, small and worn, preserved by careful conservation. The lights are dim to protect the fragile fabric. But even in the dimness, visitors can see the stitching, the repairs, the care that went into keeping it intact. They can see the love. And in seeing that love, they understand. War destroys. War consumes. War reduces cities to rubble and men to corpses. But war cannot destroy everything. There are moments, small and fragile, when kindness breaks through. When enemies recognize each other's humanity. When a toy bear travels across a valley designed for death and becomes a messenger of hope. These moments do not erase the war. They do not justify the suffering. They do not redeem the loss. But they exist. They are real. They are proof that even in hell, we can choose to be human. That is the legacy of the bear between the lines. Not that it ended the war, but that it persisted through the war. Not that it saved thousands, but that it connected two men who needed that connection to survive with their souls intact. Franz Böhmer and James Novak are both dead now. The Hürtgen Forest has grown back, though stumps of shattered trees remain beneath the new growth. The valley where they exchanged messages is peaceful, crossed by hiking trails where families walk on summer afternoons. But the bear remains. In its glass case. In its story. In the hearts of those who hear about it and understand what it represents. It remains as a reminder. As a witness. As proof that in the darkest moments of human history, when cruelty seemed total and inevitable, two men chose differently. They chose to see each other. They chose to care. They chose to remain human when the war demanded they become monsters. And in making that choice, they did something the war could not destroy. They created a moment of grace. Brief, fragile, easily overlooked. But real. And real is enough. Real is everything.